President of the United States has called it modern slavery. He is not the only one. Sex trafficking, by definition, is someone who is forced or deceived into prostitution and kept in that situation through fear tactics. And because of the nature of the crime, human trafficking numbers, including those related to sex trafficking, are difficult to get an exact count on. But according to a 2011 FBI report, it is the fastest growing business when it comes to organized crime and the third largest criminal enterprise in the world. Tonight, in our special series, we're introducing you to two women who have stories of survival, healing, and advocacy after being involved in an industry many have accepted as a part of our culture. KIMT News 3's Sarah Danik is in Studio 3 with a Covering Community investigative report.
Well, Matt, this is one of those stories that once you start learning more about, you simply can't turn away. When you start digging into the dark world of prostitution or sex trafficking, you can never really think about it the same again. You're about to meet some people who have lived and survived this world, and they want others who are watching this to be aware of what's happening around them, because we could be the key to stopping this crime. In the summer sunlight, these women look carefree, sisters without scars. But Vanita Carter and Joy Friedman know what it's like to be prisoners in a bad situation and what it means to break free. And these women are not afraid to tell their stories, ones that are difficult to hear.
Me and a girlfriend of mine decided that we would go and interview for a job as a dancer, because that's what the paper said. Dancers needed to make big money.
I've been beaten with baseball bats, 2x4s, metal pipes, gasoline thrown on me, thrown out of moving vehicles, surrounded by 15 guys, beaten and left for dead. Drug addiction, raped repeatedly, drugged down steps, stabbed with a knife, gun put to my head, beaten with tools. After all of that, through all different kinds of individuals, I didn't think there was a way out.
Vanita and Joy have a strong bond and a sisterhood that dates back more than a decade. But to understand what brought them together, you have to understand where they've been.
Sex trafficking for me started at the age of 15. I was raped by a pimp and two of his friends and held captive in a basement, so it happened in my youth.
Joy was no stranger to this kind of life. She tells me she came from generational prostitution and has family members involved in the lifestyle. So for her, there was a strange draw to what's known in the business as the life.
I saw the trips, the clothes, that kind of thing, but no one ever talked about how it felt. They made it look so easy and, you know, why get a job when you could do this?
Joy eventually landed on the stage at strip clubs, making money and getting the attention of men from all over the country, even across U.S. borders and Canada. And for a while, she didn't think much about what she was doing. After all, at least she wasn't on the streets looking for work.
Streetwalkers were lower chained than girls who did exotic dancing or escorts, when in fact all of them are the same. The same scumbags that I seen on the streets are the same scumbags that were in the bar. They grabbed me, they groped me. I felt like garbage.
Joy's life eventually caught up with her, and after years of physically and emotionally abusive pimps, or boyfriends, as many women in the life refer to them as, she found herself in a very dark place.
I literally lived on the streets. I slept under bridges, I ate out of trash cans, I turned tricks, I went to dope houses, and every time I turned a trick, I ran to the dope house to get drugs.
Joy racked up quite an arrest record and found herself in a recovery program as part of her treatment. Through a chance encounter, she met the woman who would eventually help save her life.
The first thing Vanita Carter said to me was, that I'll never forget, is that it's not my fault. I didn't cause this. And she was talking to all of us girls, but it was the first time someone had ever said that. And then she said I was worth saving.
Joy had made her way to Vanita Carter and the Breaking Free program in St. Paul. And Joy isn't the only former victim of sex trafficking that has found this place.
They don't get into it because they think it's going to hurt them. They think it's going to be like Pretty Woman, you know, or something similar. They think they will make $1 million, but that's not the reality.
Vanita is the founder and executive director of Breaking Free, a nonprofit organization that serves to help women and children exploited and hurt by sex trafficking. She started it in 1996 in Rochester and has worked since then to help those impacted by this dark industry.
We take it beyond sexual abuse. We take it into torture, because when you have to service between 5 to 10 men a day, domestic women say that, we consider that torture.
Vanita has also spent just as much time working to change the perception of what sex trafficking really is and why it can be so difficult to leave.
You just don't wake up and tell your pimp, I'm leaving today. I'm done with that. It doesn't happen like that. You can lose your life for saying something like that.
She believes it's time to start turning the focus from the women and start looking to the men who are paying for sex.
Men look this as kind of a rite of passage or something, you know what I mean? And it really is not. It's violence and it's abusive towards women. We can't act like they're the same thing, you know. And so if we start hanging felonies on men, I'm telling you, it will end.
Until then, it's all about letting the women know there is help. For Joy, this program really has been a life raft, keeping her afloat and supporting her when things aren't easy. And it's given her a new way to see life and herself.
Breaking Free gave me an opportunity, not a chance. It wasn't a second chance. They gave me an opportunity. They gave me an opportunity to show my inner real self.
And Joy now works as an education and outreach manager at Breaking Free to help other women and girls who are traveling a road that she's been down. Meanwhile, Vanita also tells me that the organization has seen an increase in need for their services. As we mentioned, they are the only program in the nation that has permanent housing, and they get calls from all over the country for those 36 units. Matt.
Thank you, Sarah. This story continues next week. We'll be looking at both Iowa and Minnesota and what law enforcement and prosecutors are doing to help combat the issue, and how a group of nuns is making quite an impact in spreading the word. That is Wednesday at 10 in part 2 of our investigative report. We recently brought you the story of 2 women with histories linked to the disturbing world of sex trafficking.
We met Joy Friedman, who had worked all over the country in the life, from stages of strip clubs to hotel rooms, experiencing things that are very difficult to hear about, trapped because she thought there was really no way out. Now she's an advocate helping others who are traveling down a path she's been on before.
So that first time is probably the most shocking piece, the most degrading piece, the most, oh my gosh, what did I just do piece? And after that, it's like, well, it's already done. The damage is done. There's no going back. So let's just keep doing it.
We also introduced you to Vanita Carter, a woman who says her experiences in the sex industry changed her life, and those memories led her to create the nonprofit group Breaking Free. They work to serve those women and girls impacted by sex trafficking.
We can only end prostitution if we can stop people from buying women and girls. And so we're trying to close down a huge industry, a multi-billion-dollar industry. And so that's, you know, that's going to take some work.
And tonight, in part 2 of this special Covering Community investigative report, we're digging deeper.
That's right, and we're talking about what's being done to combat sex trafficking, not only from an advocate standpoint, but from law enforcement and defenders of the law. In the quiet of this garden on the grounds of Assisi Heights, it's hard to imagine the horrors of what goes on in the world of sex trafficking in the community. But don't let this scene fool you. Sister Ann Walsh is not afraid to talk about the harsh realities.
At first, when we come up, that's the same question we get is, why would you be talking about human trafficking? You certainly haven't been involved in human trafficking, but the important thing is that we try to raise the awareness.
Sister Ann and her fellow Rochester Franciscan sisters took on the issue about 2 years ago after evaluating what needs they saw in their community. They wanted to focus on those living on the fringes, especially women and children. And they found themselves on the streets to see what others knew about the issue of trafficking.
We went down to University Square, where a lot of persons are coming for lunch, and got in line with the people that were ordering their pizza, their soup and things, and just asked them, do you know what human trafficking is?
That grassroots effort is paying off. The sisters now speak to full auditoriums and let people know what is happening right in Rochester. That effort to raise awareness is far-reaching. In fact, it even touched Olmsted County Attorney Mark Ostrom when the Sisters of St. Francis invited him to a panel discussion on sex trafficking.
I remember thinking back at the time, a couple things. One, it's really not happening here, so why are they interested, and why is a group of nuns interested in human trafficking? I was really fascinated by that part of it.
Since that invitation several years ago, Mark says he's seen a growing number of cases referred to his office, in part because people started to take notice.
They were getting more and more questions and calls from the general public saying, you know, something just doesn't quite seem right.
Mark is working with other county attorneys in the state's bigger cities to look at those women as victims instead of criminals. He tells us if a juvenile is caught, that person is treated as a child in need of protective services. And if it's an adult, while she still may face some charges, she's also given more access to help.
Nobody goes to their parents and says, you know what, when I grow up I want to be a prostitute. Nobody says that. Nobody has that dream. And so, you know, they're all abducted into this, and you have to keep that in your perspective.
Instead, Mark's office takes a strong stance against the pimps and the Johns and works to make sure those men have a record. He says if you eliminate the demand, then you don't even have an industry.
This is somebody that's buying and selling a human being. That's not right. We ended slavery years ago. This is a form of slavery.
One of the issues that has been challenging for those looking to combat sex trafficking is the high-tech way the industry runs. Gone are the days of on-the-street solicitation, and instead it's going online, where ads can be put up and taken down in a matter of minutes. And that makes it a crime that can happen anywhere.
Absolutely, I can almost guarantee you it is. It's harder and harder to catch, but it's there. If you know what you're looking for, if you have the opportunity, and if I were to say we have one challenge, it's that we don't have the law enforcement resources to really attack this because there's so many other things going on too.
That's also been the challenge in Iowa, where statistics on human trafficking are difficult to come by. And an organized effort to really go after sex trafficking hasn't been in place until now.
Why right now? Why not? I mean, there are children passing through our state. As you and I are sitting here talking about this today, I feel confident in saying there are children passing through our state who are on their way to a fate that none of us could imagine.
Mike Fairjack is a senior criminal investigator with the Iowa Department of Justice and is a big part of a new initiative launched late last year out of the Iowa Attorney General's office. The goal is to identify the trafficking issue in the state and promote awareness and education.
We believe that there is a significant amount of trafficking that passes through the state of Iowa. If you stop and consider the fact that we're connected by 80 and 35, which actually reach to all four borders of the country, we are the crossroads of the country.
He's also working closely with the Department of Public Safety on this new plan, including those in the Department of Criminal Investigation and the State Patrol. Gerard Myers with the DCI knows the need for a fight is there and wants this initiative to be a solid first step.
We hope that that's just a building block towards a real wide-ranging human trafficking initiative to not only protect those here in Iowa, as I said, but with our interstate system to protect those who may be transported through our state.
A key piece of the plan will involve the Iowa State Patrol, troopers who work each day on the state's major roadways, and their eyes and ears could be the first to pick up on a bad situation.
This is a problem in all of our society, and these are human beings, these are children, and all of us are parents, all of us are residents here in Iowa, and we all have a sense that this is ours and we need to protect it.
And this group knows it's an initiative that needs to be put in action now because there's too much at stake to wait.
I've been in law enforcement for a very long time, and I have done everything from parking tickets to you name it. And the viciousness that I have seen in these cases exceeds anything I could imagine.
And there are also talks right now about shifting some of the laws in Iowa that would give more protection to the women and young people involved in sex trafficking. For example, treating them more like victims rather than criminals. Right now, prostitution is an aggravated misdemeanor. Now, in Minnesota, the Safe Harbor Act was signed into law in 2011, but will go into effect in August of 2014. It'll treat sex-trafficked adolescents as victims of crime in need of support instead of criminals. Matt.
Thank you, Sarah. We have much more on this story on KIMT.com, including links to services for those in need of help. Look for this story under local news.